back on another exciting episode of Starfleet Boy, where we have a casual and informal conversation about Star Trek. And today I'm super excited that we have a new guest, but not someone new in my Trek life. It's Michelle, or On the Rocks 81, who's also a fellow Bev head, as we like to be called.
Very much so.
By the way, I didn't coin that. It was Fathery, right? Like, who coined that? Like,
We have to give credit.
I didn't.
Well,
I
think
that's been around since like the 80s too.
It has.
You were the first one that I heard
okay.
it from, so I don't know what the origin is. I'm sure it just goes back like genealogies, but I stopped with who I heard it from first.
I heard it at a convention in like the early 90s once, so I think it's been around a while.
It's been around.
Yeah.
It's coming back.
It's coming back.
Bev heads are back.
Yes, big time.
So I got it from the ether. Starfleet Boy is having technical difficulties, and usually I'm on camera, but I'm not on camera. So at some point,
he's shrunk too small to be seen on screen.
Yeah. Thank you, Aaron.
You have any crystalline entities around you?
We need the macro scope.
Yeah. I love it. My eye is on you guys right now.
We'll try to fix this by the end of the episode. We can beam you in and out, and it'll be fine.
Yeah,
it only takes 20 minutes. It only takes 20 minutes. But so at some point, I might give Fathery the keys to the Enterprise. This is not the Enterprise. Sorry, the Starship Starfleet Boy. And and then I'll restart my computer because that usually fixes everything. So just FYI, that's gonna happen. And well, Starfleet, Aaron's involved with some high end Starfleet intelligence operations sometimes, so he gets called away. So that might also happen. So brace yourselves, audience. It's gonna be a wild. Not. It's gonna be a wild show, but I'm so
glad to be here.
The only way through is chaos. Is that the line that Dal says? Right?
Yeah, that's in Prodigy.
Yeah, I love that line.
That's in the,
but I'm really glad
Maru episode.
To be rejoined by Fathery and Aaron. Thank you guys for coming. And Sub Commander is playing the tennis, so we should all collectively root for him and hope he's like, yeah, he wins. And Ruben may show up. He might be a wild card appearance on here. We'll see, but one never knows. That's just how it goes on Starfleet Boy. Before we get into the discussion of the show, our format, just as a reminder and just as like kind of like letting you know, Michelle, even though I'm sure you've seen many Starfleet Boys, just we start off with like a little episode summary. Usually I task someone else to do it, so if you feel like doing an episode summary, you can be the person who's tasked to do it.
I'm good for today. I only saw the show once, so I leave that in your capable hands, whoever
Excellent. And then we just go right into a discussion. I do a slideshow and stuff like that. Although part of these technical difficulties is the slideshow is not loading. So maybe when I restart my computer, there will be a slideshow. If there isn't one, I'll just pull up images from Google. There's a lot of images that are already screen capped for me, so it's fine with me. But anyways, Michelle, would you tell folks a little bit about yourself in the Starfleet Boy audience, and how you got into Star Trek, and like what you're doing, because you're kind of doing a lot of stuff associated with Star Trek and your passion for it.
Yeah, well, first of all, I started off. I am a kind of lifelong Trekkie. My dad got me into Star Trek when I was probably like 8 or 9 years old, right around just before Star Trek 6 came out. He's like, you have to watch the original series so I can finally go to the movies and see a Star Trek movie. So he started me off with the motion picture, and I kept turning it off because I was so bored by it. It was really sad. Like putting on my, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and stuff like that. I'm like, I'd rather watch this. And he kept like turning it back on. He's like, no, you need to watch. And I got through the movie, and then I saw Wrath of Khan. And that's when, even like though I was like 8 or 9, I loved that movie. And then we were catching reruns on like WPIX of the original series. Then I went to the library. I got the VHS tapes out and just fell in love with Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. Bones was my favorite character, but I loved Uhura too. And of course, Spock, the whole crew. But loved that trio, which kind of kept me away from TNG for a hot second. I would watch it. I kind of grew up when TNG was on, but didn't watch it too much. I fell in love with TNG later. But to make a long story short, with the animated series, I begged my dad for years to get the Columbia House VHS set. And finally, one Christmas under the tree, there it was in all its glory. I was probably
That's awesome.
9th or 10th grade at the time. So my best friend and I, who also enjoyed Star Trek, she was a Next Generation fan. So we would have battle it out about Kirk and Picard. We would put we would put the animated series in, and it was like we loved it, and we appreciated it, but we'd also like kind of lovingly kind of make fun of it a little bit, but it was a fun time. I remember great memories of Saturday mornings in her basement, just popping in the animated series TAS and just loving it. It was like season 4, and I always considered it canon to me. And then eventually when Star Trek Picard was coming out, I decided to go back and watch The Next Generation, binge watched it, became a big fan of Picard and Dr. Beverly Crusher. And now at Jester Nene, Jessie, she has created Crusher Convo. You can follow them at Crusher Convo or follow us. And she asked me to co-host. So she's kind of running that. She's doing editing and she does a ton of work on it. And I show up and I help in different ways, but she's definitely the creator behind Crusher Convo. And we started out on Twitter Spaces, and that's where we found Starfleet Boy and I think Fathery too. And just our love for Beverly overflows, and it overflows into the podcast now, which is really cool. So I hope that was long, but thank you for asking.
I dared to speculate this wild theory about Star Trek Picard, and I hurt so many people's feelings. It was like terrible. I felt so bad.
It was fine. I only wept for a day. It was all right. It's the trauma of lessons. We just did that episode too, and let me tell you, that was a contentious Crusher Convo. When that comes out before Picard hits, we had to do some editing on that. It was Lessons is a tough one for us Picrusher fans, because I am a Picrusher shipper. So it gets to us when we hear the name Nella Darren.
I 100% also ship them, but I also have ideas about Picard that
it's
are pretty
cool.
wild.
It's all good. It's all game. So
well, thank you.
In the future, they live so long, everybody can have all sorts of relationships and just come back to each other. And,
That's true. That
Exactly.
actually happens
People are
like
long-lived in the
IRL
24th
anyways.
century.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Well, that's
That's
cool...
why Riker kept denying these promotions to captain. He's like, "Oh no, I don't. I'm only 41 years old. I'm gonna live another 100 years. I don't need to accept promotion now."
Yeah, he's like, I want to have fun longer. That's great. I like that headcanon. That's perfect.
That's a very cool idea. Oh man, I don't know.
Michelle, that's really cool that you got into the original series before TNG, because I'm about the same age as you, and it's the same way. Like TOS was kind of even though TNG was out, I just found TOS first, and I feel like it's so rare to find Star Trek fans in 2023 that are under 50 years old that kind of have a preference of TOS over TNG. I love both, but I like TOS a little bit more.
When it's your childhood Trek, whatever Trek you loved when you were a kid, if you got into it when you were a kid, I think that's always gonna have a special place in your heart.
Definitely.
And my TNG love is overflowing right now, but my TOS love, I'll just pop in Star Trek 4. I introduced friends to Star Trek through Star Trek 4, which I think is the best movie. And did Generations break your heart? Because that put me off on TNG until 2018, because I'm like, I didn't even want to be around these guys. And now this is how they end my favorite captain of all time. I watched that in the movies and I cried. And my father did too. He was not happy.
Least favorite of the movies, yeah.
It's bad. Nemesis is a close second, but it's tough.
We'll have to invite you to one of our because we've done Generations conversations.
Oh, I don't mean to make.
Though. You haven't done the TNG movies, Starfleet Boy, right? You only
didn't we do a watch along though, on After Dark? I feel like
but the only ones you covered on Starfleet Boy actual are the first 6.
Yeah, that's correct.
And Beyond,
that's correct.
Because it was Beyond was when you were getting started.
When I was getting started. Good.
Yeah, but I know this is about the animated series. So
his catalog. He knows my catalog too. Nice. So all right, well that's very cool. So Fathery or Aaron, do either of you want to do the episode summary so I can go restart my computer?
I have not watched it for a while, so
I'll do
it. Sorry.
Yay.
I watched it last night. So
All right, you're in command.
the Terratin incident, the Enterprise is sent to check out some supernova that they're scanning, just doing some scientific research. They pick up this weird distress call, this word Terratin. No one knows what that means, but Kirk wants to go investigate. And what they find is a planet doesn't seem to have any life on it, a lot of volcanic activity, and then bam, the Enterprise is struck by some weird beam, some strange radiation. Everything starts getting bigger, or so it seems. Turns out the crew are shrinking, they're contracting. The space between their atoms is shrinking, and so their uniforms conveniently shrink also because it's algae based, but only the organic material, like people in uniforms, are shrinking. So the ship stays the same size, communicators, tricorders, everything, all their equipment's the same size, but they keep getting smaller and smaller to the point to where they're terrified. They're about to lose their ability to operate the ship. And also, the dilithium, I guess, gets messed up by the radiation, so they got that to worry about. Kirk volunteers to beam down to the planet's surface. Like, well, I might as well go down and see if hopefully we can find something out on the planet to help solve our dilemma here. And it turns out the transporter restores them to their normal size because the computer remembers their molecular scan from the last time they beamed. And Kirk returns to the Enterprise, but now everyone is like very, very, very little, and has so the bridge crew has been abducted on the planet Terratin. There's a little city. Kirk targets it with the ship's weapons. He actually threatens to blow up the little Terratin village, but they're like, no, we were just trying to get you to notice us. We're so small. We're this old Earth colony. We all got shrunk. And our planet is not stable, and we really need to evacuate. But we're also very proud people. This is kind of embarrassing. We have to be like these refugees, and we really don't want like to beg. But I mean, we're gonna request that you help us, and we'll die if you don't. So please help us out. And they also conveniently have a shitload of dilithium on this planet, so they're able to beam up the bridge crew to normal size. They're able to use the dilithium crystals to get the Enterprise back fully powered, and then they beam up this little tiny city full of people that are 1/16 of an inch tall. And Kirk says, "Okay, I'll take you to this lovely new planet where you can all live happily ever after." And that's
And
the
then
Terratin
eventually the
incident.
city ends up in the collector on lower decks.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That was amazing, by the way. Way to
Yeah,
just
like so
hit
many
all
things.
the that it's the animated series can get a little out there. So great summary.
That's one of the things I liked about this episode. It was pretty out there. And I really like Gulliver's Travels, and I felt like there was a lot of that, uh, maybe mixed in with Alice in Wonderland too, because it's just Star Trek and it's trippy.
I mean, it's cool to
general.
do, the shrinking thing. That's a easy thing to do in animation, right? You just we just have like smaller character models on like the same background. It's very complicated to do that in live action. So
I don't know. It felt like there were some details added to things that you wouldn't normally see detail. Like, I don't know. I felt like in the scene where Sulu gets injured and we see the chair, I guess. Like the chair felt like it was like more detailed than usual.
well, yeah, I'm sure like
or,
they
yeah.
redrew that stuff. I'm talking about
Yeah.
like when like they're like little, like sitting in like their seats and they can like barely
Yeah.
reach the controls and stuff. That would have been very difficult to do in live action, but it's one of those things. It's so much easier in animation, so that's where it happens. It's kind of like zero gravity, people floating around. That's happened in all 3 animated Star Treks. There's like zero gravity sequences. It's kind of rare in live action track.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen too often.
I think the first time I saw it was in, what was it, Star Trek 6, the beginning with the Klingons when they're like got killed. I think with the Pepto Bismol blood.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That was
Star
a really
Trek
good
6.
way.
I
to-
remember
yeah.
that. I had to
Yeah.
write something for my computer class. This is how far back that movie goes. And I remember writing about like the blood, like the bubbles of blood that were just purple and floaty, and that really stood out to me as like a 9-year-old or 10-year-old.
It's TAS blood. No.
Yeah.
That was that color.
I was very I like even though it's kind of something that we see a lot. I like that there was another lost human, colony out there, and it was really weird and cool that they got they got shrunk and they built this city and
They get
you know,
small.
So did they just rip off the Rick Moranis movie from this episode? That's just basically what they did. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
I mean, there's a
Like,
beam, there's a device, there's a beam. You know, like
There's it's kind of a sci-fi genre, like people shrinking.
Yeah.
There'd been a
Well,
lot of, like,
Filmation even
pulpy-
had a show, Fantastic Voyage, that was on before this, which everybody
Oh.
shrunk down every episode. So
oh,
These animators were pros at this type of thing.
yeah,
What's the big movie, the black and white, the Incredible Shrinking Man or something like that? I don't know. I saw it on Sci-Fi Channel a long time ago.
oh yeah,
the.
I think that's what
Oh,
it
I
is.
don't know.
Where he has to
Google
like
it.
fight he has to fight like a mouse
Yeah.
with a needle or something.
Mm-hmm. I'll look it up.
it's a good
Oh, wow,
trope.
I can't-
Like, I
what
enjoyed
is
it the
that?
way it
Yeah.
played in this episode. Like, somebody in the chat was saying how they loved it when Kirk barked orders at the crew.
Yeah,
To get so he didn't step on them.
Yeah.
I don't. It's her tag that I see is "Let's get small," which
Oh, that's our friend Jill. That's a great here.
yes,
where's
we
the-
do follow each other on Twitter. I think so. Yes.
Oh, so here's what let's get. So Father, you did reference this. I haven't asked you guys what you thought of this episode overall individually, but before we get to that, like Father referenced this last night on a stream we did on PJ's channel, and I didn't really get it, and then I had to look it up. But yeah, so let's get small is a reference to acid trips in the '60s drug culture lingo. It's a reference to Alice in Wonderland, so it makes a lot of sense when you think of it that way.
I only knew about it because Steve Martin did a bit, or I think it was like he did like a whole comedy special called "Let's Get Small" or something like that.
yeah.
And the-
Steve Martin, also from Texas, he's born in Waco.
Oh, wow.
Really?
And then
Did not know that.
here's what Michelle was referring to. I loved it when Kirk barked orders at the crew about where to stand so he didn't step on them. That is kind of horrifying to imagine that he would kill, but it could happen.
That's
When he
When
walked
says-
off the transporter pad, and I'm
Yeah.
like, "Don't do it," because they're too tiny. You cannot see them.
When he says step away from the helm area, it always sounds like he's saying Hell Maria. I'm like, what the hell is the Hell Maria? Like, what part of the ship is that?
Well, so what did you guys each think of it? Let's start with you, Michelle. Like, what do you think of the, now that you like? I know you're like, you know, you haven't seen the animated series in a long time, so you're kind of like reintroducing yourself.
Revisiting.
I'm kind of going through the same thing, and so it's pretty delightful. But a lot of things, it's funny. I remember this episode. A lot of things I remembered about it, rather, I should say. But mostly focusing on the gimmicks, you know, like the
The
stuff like that.
shrinking,
But-
yeah.
But what'd you think about this episode? If you don't mind telling us your thoughts.
I thought it was
overall?
cool. I mean, 24-minute trek is always interesting, right? So you know that it's going to be a concise story. It's interesting. They're out exploring. I feel like Kirk was very angry in this one, but I thought the animation was everything I remembered it to be, and I find it endearing. Like I love the old school animation. I thought this episode was interesting because the crew really had to work together in bizarre circumstances to solve a problem. Like when they were beaming Kirk over, like they had to set up the the string that was pulling on the, you don't want to mess up the transporting, right? And I thought it was interesting, like that the transporter fixes everything, right? That's a trope in Star Trek that I think
Yes.
kind of starts. I don't know if it starts in TOS, but I feel like this episode, I can think of TNG episodes that borrow from this, like Rascals, right? Where they have to go back to from being kids to being adults. Something not the same, but kind of a similar thing.
Or that season 2 episode where
It-
Pulaski gets really old.
Yeah, and then they
Yeah.
they de-age her, right?
I think it got started a little earlier in the animated series in the Lorelei
Yeah.
signal when they had to
Okay.
de-age Kirk and Spock and the other.
Oh,
men.
I love that
Yeah.
one. Yes.
Yeah, that's a
It's
good
happened
one.
3 times in TAS. which
I was
is,
just
like,
talking to Jesse last night, and I mentioned the animated series and how they have the counterclock incident, which I think is the last one,
Uh-huh.
where they they turn into babies pretty much, which I thought was adorable. But yeah, I love the transporter. It fixes everything aspect. I love. I really thought that it was an interesting episode. Also, crystalline. I was thinking of the crystalline entity because again, I got TNG on my brain. So I'm like, did the crystalline entity originate from this planet? I don't know. It's a stretch, but I'll put it out there.
Oh, interesting. That one I have to think about because I feel like
It's
there's, like,
probably not correct. I just heard the word crystalline and immediately thought of Data and the
I-
destruction of the planet he was on.
I made a connection to the dilithium stuff being somehow maybe an inspiration for the burn, but I almost Father said don't say that.
I was just kidding. You're allowed to connect the dots between these Star Trek
Well,
shows.
It's called
it might,
stretching.
it might be a
Stretch
stretch.
canon.
Yeah, that might be a stretch. Or
I don't know. For
or-
anyone who's like says the TAS is like so convoluted and stuff, it's like the burn doesn't make any sense. It's just
yeah, it's true.
it's a sad kid got mad and all the dilithium blew up. Like, okay, basically.
Well, this is what I love about the animated series is they can do these wild stories. They can have wild aliens on the
Yeah.
ship, right? That now are becoming canon because we can do it live
Mhm.
action.
Right.
But I love
I want to see
animated.
a live action Van Dorian.
Mm,
That
yeah.
would be cool.
I think it's gonna
the
happen.
tentacle-
Ooh, I hope it happens soon.
I always said like if they do a fourth Kelvin movie, you know, obviously the sad part of that is that you have to replace Anton Yelchin's Chekhov.
Yeah.
But wouldn't it be cool if they did like live action Eric's and you had a 3-armed, 3-legged character with hanging out with Chris Pine and Carl Urban in the next Kelvin movie? I think that'd be neat.
Yes.
Eric's felt like he had more to do in this episode. Or he had like maybe a few more lines. Like, so I appreciated that because
He went to the planet.
Yeah,
Which is
it's
more than
part
I
of the,
think
he's
he's
part of
done
the
in the
bridge
past.
crew. They call
Yeah.
him.
What was he talking
part of the
about? His
bridge crew.
eyes? Like, was he talking about implants that he has in his eyes? Because
No,
that's cool if that's
those things that you put your like the
Oh,
viewing the
yeah.
You
focals.
couldn't
or
reach
whatever
it
they-
anymore. Yeah.
That's right.
Mm.
What were your Aaron? You obviously wrote the book on it, but watching it, watching it the last time you watched it, what were your like kind of things that you thought about this episode overall?
I really like all like for me. I could think it's more the individual parts are more interesting than the whole in some ways. I really liked that in the later in Enterprise that they tied it into this with the Terratin. So they had the Terra, Terra Nova, which is probably better. This is probably better than Terra Nova in some ways.
Yeah.
But the fact that that's part of the same program, like Terra 10 is the Terra Nova project. And just what we got to see with the unspiraling dilithium crystals in the intermixed chamber and stuff like that, just visually it was just really interesting. I think they didn't play that safe. That could have just been said without even showing it, honestly. But the fact that we got to see that, and they were doing the science. Everybody had something to do. Even Nurse Chapel, although she then had a help, or that section where she was just like, okay, stop saying help. You
And
can
it was
swim.
like-
I bet you can swim.
But she got what they needed, right? Like
Yes,
she was
and that's
successful
what
in
I
her
loved at the
mission.
end. She's like, yes, it's like, but I also got the laser.
You
I
will
was
be
so
doing
scared
no
for
more
her.
climbing.
Yeah,
nurse.
that's
I was
yeah,
so
I'm like,
scared
oh,
for
stop
her.
treating Chapel like garbage. We're strange new
know.
worlds. Oh.
They did it to her last episode too. They character assassinated Chapel, which were I'm still trying to
Constantly.
figure out my thoughts on
Constantly.
Mud's passion.
yeah, that's true.
I
Yeah.
started
But-
a TOS
Yeah, it's
rewatch
rough.
before Strange New Worlds, and that definitely, I was shocked at how they. I did not remember half the things.
I
they
think
did.
because she was wallpaper. That was the
Mhm.
problem. I think
Yeah.
she was just like treated as like a
It was
background
the
object. and
60s,
just like,
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It is
So,
weird
I mean,
on,
she's
like,
better in this episode in this series, but not
Mm-hmm.
dramatically.
They do give her more in the animated series, and even
Yes.
TOS season 3, as many flaws as it has, there are like a few like good, or at least like she gets more screen time in that season, it seems. But if we go on like a little Chapel tangent, if that's okay, it is a pretty sad thing that Majel Barrett had like this really cool female leader with number 1 to play in the cage with the original pilot when Jeff
Yeah.
Hunter was going to be Pike, and I don't think the Jeff Hunter Pike show would have been as good as the Shatner and Nimoy, that famous chemistry. That's what put Star Trek on the map. Like regardless of how you feel about William Shatner, like because of the Spock Kirk relationship, that kind of is what made Trek a big hit.
And Bones, I feel like it's very much a triad. But anyway,
Yeah, but
carry on.
but
I agree.
The sad part is that Majel Barrett could have imagined like the iconic character number 1 could have been if that had been allowed to have been incorporated into the show that they made, and instead she played like this very bland, one-dimensional nurse who's just there and give like Dr. McCoy someone to talk to most of the time, and like
And Majel
that's
Barrett
it.
was a good actress. I mean, we see that people like to make fun of Loaxana Troy, but she had some really powerful episodes near the end of
Yeah.
TNG.
Half a Life.
Yeah,
Half
Half
a
a
Life is
Life.
a
Yeah.
great episode.
And then Dark
Wow.
Page, in season 7,
totally.
where we find out about her daughter, right? Her other
That's
daughter.
probably her best acting
Kestra.
in all of Star Trek.
Kestra, yeah.
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 Yeah,
Who the-
Majel was
yeah.
very good in that. The stuff she does with Odo on DS9
Yeah.
is good.
Jill kind of stole my thunder. Jill pointed this out, and I said, yes, this is hilarious. Where Uhura is talking about, or somebody's talking over the intercom about how women are losing their rings and their hairpins, and some are near panic. I was just like, this is awesome. Yes, more of this, please.
I was scared.
I love that
for
pan that they
Chapel.
did of like the room where everybody was like having food and big,
the
but
mess
they're,
hall.
they're not moving it at all. It's just like,
Yes.
okay.
But thanks, Jill, for pointing that out, because that was probably my laugh out loud part of the episode.
Oh, Aaron, you love to point out how Roddenberry really wanted to have lava in the animated series.
Oh yes, exactly.
Yeah, now that
More
we're
lava.
animated, we're not restricted to live action. We can put lava in every episode. So yeah, we have.
And
a
they had
volcano
like if
exploding.
you go back and read all of the pre interviews and stuff from Roddenberry about TAS, it's just all about lava. I'm like, okay, lava and I think he mentions dragons or dinosaurs or something like that, but that ended up in there too. So
Yeah, I don't know if
Kirk
he gave
just looking
like
at the lava, where he just turns his head and looks at the lava coming down. Like, yes,
I don't know
this
if
is what I
Roddenberry
remember.
had much of a hand in Star Trek 3: The Search for Spock, but I wonder if like he gave like some notes to Nimoy and Harv Bennett that are like, yeah, like in the final battle when Kirk is fighting the Klingon, you should add in some lava in there.
There's a lot of lava in Star Trek 3, so it's great.
Oh, that's true.
Although nowadays you do it more like Mustafar, like
Yeah.
the out of control lava. It's like everywhere.
It was out of control in this episode. I mean, it was I was worried about the civilization.
I was.
Yeah.
I thought
was
Kirk
worried
was going to
about-
leave him to die. I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah, there's a nice little. They use that device really well. I was kind of confused too. I was like, did Kirk really just like, is he just gonna abandon these people? But no, he saved them. Now, I don't think they can be reversed, right? Because your pattern has to have already been.
It's in their
the trans-
DNA, yeah. So
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
like, but how cool is that? That means that wherever he takes them to, there's like this whole society of these tiny humans. Wouldn't it be
Candor.
delightful if, yeah, because I think this would like work best in animation for some of the reasons I mentioned earlier. But wouldn't it be delightful if Prodigy or Lower Decks went and visited this planet? Like, what if like the main characters from those shows, they could shrink down and have like a shrunken adventure with these little people?
That's great. I also think that the two different shows would have completely different like ways of tackling the subject, and like I imagined a scenario in Lower Decks that's kind of dark, but I loved it. I was like, they decide to land and like for some reason they ignored the communication that says like, oh, there's like tiny little civilizations, do not land on the planet, like like there's safe zones, you're like giants to them, and they end up like, whoops. We just destroyed a bunch of cities.
Oh my
Terratin
gosh.
cities.
that would be bad.
I was
Yeah,
really
that
worried
would
about
be terrible.
Kirk stepping
I think that's
on
pretty
people.
dark even for Lower Decks.
All right, fine.
Yeah.
Darn it. Starfleet Boy went too dark.
I think Lower Decks is funny because stuff like that doesn't happen in it. So that would kind of like ruin the humor.
That's true.
So Joel
The
was
cities-
asking.
The
ahead, I'm
cities were
sorry.
empty. No, I'm saying the cities were empty. Sorry.
Yeah, it's all good.
Carry on.
Joel was asking in the chat if it was Picard, if his artificial heart would have shrunk. Like, what would have
Nope.
Picard would have
Oh, wow.
died? Well, that's
oh
dark.
my god, that is
That's-
terrifying.
And then I think someone else said something about hip replacements and then contact
Oh my
lenses or
God.
something. Like, you really, if you think about this too much, it can get like The Boys or something. Like you gotta. All
Yeah.
right.
It's a good thing human and other like their medical technology like kind of which we got a really cool glimpse of like healing and details of that in this episode, which is very cool. But it's cool that you can like repair what you already have, so like you don't have to worry about your organic parts you don't have to have too many times where you have metal parts. Like Picard, obviously, like
Picard had a
his
robot heart, but I think
And that
now
doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense. Even
Geek
then, I'm just
Filter
like,
said
why
that.
did
He
they...
said, "Why didn't he have Geek
Yeah, that
Filter
was
over
me.
here in the chat?" Said that. I'm sorry, Aaron. I'm used to kind of trying to go through fewer comments.
Sorry.
This is your gig. My
Yeah,
apologies.
it was just sort of
I'm
no. I
getting
just
so
responding
excited.
to in the chat. I'm bad
I'm
about
gonna
that.
mute.
Like I probably should just like.
No, come on, it's fine, it's fine. I forgot to mention it's okay to interrupt a little here. But what were you saying, Aaron?
Oh no! Like what I wrote in the chat is like you would think that
Oh.
even in the '80s we were talking about regrowing hearts and things like that. So I'm like, when they gave him an artificial heart, I'm like, what, really? And they showed it. I'm just like, it's gigantic. It is like not even a small, like hearts are not that big. And so I'm just like, what is the size of his chest cavity? It was just like, I don't know, because if people might know, I had a heart transplant. So I, know a little bit about this kind of thing. And it was just like, okay, sure. I mean, that's one of the reasons I like Dr. Pulaski, because she gave him the heart transplant. But yeah, and the other thing I loved in this is the Xenolon, the fact that their clothes are made out of this sort of organic material and it shrunk with them. They actually made they had a reason for it, which is cool. Not just like, the clothes just happened to shrink with it, because that happens in a lot of cartoons, or when they're shrinking down or
that
whatever.
happened in
But
Rascals. There's no explanation.
Yeah.
They're like, they have kid-sized clothes on all of a sudden. Okay.
Oh
No, they had Rascals. They had big clothes.
No, they were baggy, right?
A
They're
little
all
baggy
floppy and stuff. Yeah.
Not as big as they probably should have been. Aaron, I do have to apologize. I totally didn't connect the dots at your Geek Filter, even though it's right
no,
there
that's
on
okay.
the screen there. So my apologies.
No
Steal
problem.
your thunder. I'm like, well, Geek Filter said you're right here, Aaron. So there you go. Fantastic.
I didn't want to interrupt, so I just typed it in the chat.
Jump in, please.
My computer is still not, like, my chat's frozen, so I'm relying on you guys to, like, say something, and then I can find it.
They're
usually,
saying
like...
some pretty nasty things about you, Starfleet.
Oh man,
like,
what has happened? Like,
I don't know what you did to your audience to infuriate them so much, but
no. But have we ever gotten like an on-screen explanation about why Jean-Luc needed a mechanical heart?
Yeah, because he got stabbed. He got
No,
stabbed in
like
the
why
heart.
he couldn't get like a regrown heart or any
Yeah,
like,
they
like that.
never explain that. Maybe because it's just
Father.
easier. The only thing I can think of is that he, because they were on a star base like out in the middle of nowhere when it happened originally, that they put in a mechanical one because that's what they had, and then they just were like, okay, we'll just continue to do that because the way it's been.
He could have been so critical that there wasn't time to grow an organ,
Right.
but there was time to replicate one, and so now he's kind of like hooked in on that system. Okay, that's a cool.
Because when you do that, you actually
that's a nice Trek
rewire basically kind of how everything connects to your heart. And I mean, by then they have the ability probably to do the micro surgery that connects all of the nerve tissue and stuff like that. Like now they don't. Like if I go jogging, I have to wait for the chemicals in my body to tell my heart that I need to go faster, as opposed to the electrical impulses, because not everything's connected. So I imagine they still can do that, but it still would probably be rejiggered a little bit. So
I think
the metal one makes sense.
This like makes me feel like kind of a little extra sentimental about Jean-Luc and kind of like his physical ailments, because it's kind of neat that like he has always been a character that had like a portion of his like, human parts like not, somehow like not fully complete or whatever. Like that's a neat idea. And now, I mean, he's a synthetic life form. So he's gone through this like insane kind of like interesting, very sci-fi journey, which I think
I'm curious what his heart looks like.
Captain
Do they
too.
replicate the metal? The like,
I
is
think
that
now
really
he has, like,
duplicated?
What would look like
I
think
think
now he's like
I think it's
what
like a
would be
flesh and blood
yeah.
heart now.
Yeah.
So should
Now.
I get to
I'm
my
curious.
Crusher thing with that? I really want, they're obviously haven't seen it. Like it's gonna be different on the show, but my headcanon was Beverly sees him for the first time. They embrace, and then she puts her hand on his chest because she always does that with her patients, and she goes, "Your heart." Like she notices immediately.
Oh, that would be interesting.
That the heart is different because she's a doctor, right? And she's also used to taking
That'd be
care of
lovely.
him. Yeah, so I thought
That
that
would
was
be
a nice
cool.
little. And I tried to type in the chat, but I couldn't because I'm very new to this. Thank you for all the kind words out there to Ben, Joel, Jill. Thank you. It's awesome to kind of be getting into the Star Trek community on these forums. And thank you guys.
Yay.
So I tried to type it in there, but it just didn't. I don't know
You
what I'm
gotta
doing.
so the trick to it is you gotta open another window and launch it from like YouTube so that you're able to comment, because unfortunately it
Do
doesn't
the
let you
pop-out chat.
yeah,
Maybe
like,
next time I will. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to mess with the fact that everything's working right now, which is
but
a
it's
miracle,
also
really.
cool. We actually
Yeah.
enjoy interaction with the audience, so anytime any of y'all can just stop and highlight a comment and expound on that idea. So that's awesome.
I don't
too,
think we
so.
can actually do that though.
Yeah, we don't have that option.
I tried it when you guys mentioned it. I tried to highlight it, but I'm having so many technical difficulties, so I'm sorry if I seem distracted. I keep looking at other
No,
things
I
on
mean
the
we can
screen
see it, but
and
we
stuff.
can't like bring it up on the screen.
But yeah, so yeah, it made me really sentimental about that, and that's really sweet. I like that idea as well. Yeah, anyways, like you guys, Sunday, that's tomorrow, the trailer,
Yeah.
the full trailer. Okay, we got to stop talking about Star Trek Picard. This is the Star Trek
The animated
Animated
series. My apologies.
stream.
Picard, the animated series.
I'm wearing a Picard T-shirt. I don't know. It's
Very nice.
make it snow. So
Make it so. I'm
Yeah.
wearing this
I don't like
live long
snow,
and
but it
prosper
was
art.
wearing a
nice.
Deep
Somebody
Space Nine
wanted to
shirt.
see yours.
Oh,
Starfleet
I
Boy
just was
had requested.
playing.
Nice. Is that Deep
You're,
Space Nine?
Yeah,
Nice.
Oh,
I
very
just
cool.
that's my favorite Star Trek show.
I just
so.
completed that series. I had never watched Deep Space Nine except the Tribbles episode. I watched that
yeah.
when it first aired. Still
Oh,
impressive.
Look at that glamour. Very cool. What was
don't
that?
have a shirt.
So since we don't have a slideshow, it's kind of not usually we go kind of like and comment a little bit on some of the animation as well. But was there
Yeah.
anything in particular that stood out about the animation to you guys?
Oh, yes.
And I know. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
There's a big Easter egg in here. There's a cameo of some of the animators. They drew themselves into the episode.
That's why the guy has
Really?
glasses.
Glasses,
Oh wow!
yep.
Oh, that's so cool. Because I cited this as a canonical reference to glasses, other than Captain Kirk and stuff like this. So that's cool.
Yep, that was
Yeah,
Herb
and then
Hazelton.
Alex Kurtzman in Lower Decks when he's on the captain's
That's
high
right.
BP chair. He has his glasses. I
That's
mean, it wouldn't look like Alex Kurtzman. That's like the thing you associate with him, right?
Right.
He's got like those thick glasses, like those thick frames, and he's got like the spiky silver hair. Like that's Alex
Yep.
Kurtzman, right? You have to put the glasses on there. It won't look
He
like
drew
Alex.
himself into Lower Decks. I did not know this.
No,
Well,
they
I don't know
drew
if
him
it
into
was his
it.
They drew him
choice,
into
but-
it, yeah.
Oh, that's what I yes.
I think
Someone
got
Mike
himself
McMahon
out.
did it. I think it's
Yeah.
a joke.
That's funny.
But
I have to look at that.
It was funny because it stood out just because their hairstyles were so 70s, like even more so than what we see. I feel
Yeah,
like
get a
on-
haircut, you hippies.
It's like I felt like, oh, there's something about that. I wonder who those guys are. I should have looked that up. That's cool.
When they put David Gerald into the trouble, what am I trying to say? more tribbles,
More
more
tribbles,
troubles.
more
My brain's
troubles.
like
Or-
melting. Yes, that he had long, kind of like shaggy hair, and they basically gave him a Starfleet haircut.
And
So it's
in the cage, the transporter chief has glasses in some shots, and then in some shots he doesn't. But there's when they
He's,
beam
like,
down to
trying to-
Talos 4, there's a guy with glasses.
See, people did it before Peter Jackson
Let
in
me
Lord of the
see.
Rings. Hitchcock and all that, Terry Metalis was in Star Trek before he was even part of what's going on today,
Yeah.
right? Wasn't he in
These Are the Voyages?
Yeah.
As
And
an Enterprise
he's
D crew member.
he did work on
But he was
Enterprise,
already
right?
he was working on Enterprise, and he worked on Voyager. I think
Yeah, he's one of Brandon Braga's people. He
Yeah.
Mhm.
when he got out of college, he was like, "Oh, I want to be a writer on Star Trek," and he was able to, land an internship on Voyager, and Brandon Braga took him under his wing for a few years.
That's pretty cool.
There was some like animation like oddities in this episode too. Like sometimes Aaron, we were talking about it. The animation is just a little off in terms of like the color and like
And a little mushy.
mushy,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like because they remastered everything. Well, I mean, it's soft. It's like it's not the
Yeah.
lines aren't just quite as crisp,
Mhm.
and it's like it got slightly out of focus or something. But I'm not exactly sure why because they redid everything. They're just maybe it's just certain scenes because I didn't notice that some of it was fine, but there are times when Kirk looks like almost white as opposed to like a peach
Pale,
skin color or
like
whatever.
he looks like he looks out.
He looked very
like he has
pale.
yeah, it's true. I was gonna
He
say
needs to
looked
get more
kind of like an
sun. I don't
albino.
know.
He needs to go to Ryza.
Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah.
I didn't notice, but I feel like that happened. I was gonna say like I had a Trek explanation where like maybe the planet's atmospherics made people kind of change to more a bluish. There were like bluish tones in the atmosphere or whatever that could change your skin tone or whatever. Kind of the way like when you go under those yellow lights in tunnels, like
Yeah.
it makes everything kind of weird looking. But then it happens on the Enterprise, I think, too. So then I was like, oh yeah, no, it's
Oops.
something else. Something else happened. It was.
And then you can always see like the panels that they would, I guess, reuse. They had like templates, I think. So like when they were supposed to be shrunken down, you could see like when they would get to certain close-ups, it looked like full Kirk in his full captain's chair. And then they would pull out and you'd see like tiny Kirk in his
Yeah.
full captain's chair. So it was like little things like that you expect with an animated series from the 70s,
Yeah.
I thought the animation, I enjoy the low tech. I don't want to say low tech, but just the way it is, because I know somebody did it with TNG recently on YouTube, and it's very nostalgic
There's
to
also
me.
a Voyager one.
yeah.
I feel like there's been a Voyager one. Has there been a DS9 one yet?
I haven't.
No,
I haven't
so.
seen it.
Is there?
Oh,
No.
They might have
a DS9 what?
animated.
there's like a YouTube account that has done.
Oh, yeah, they-
create
I know what
little
you're talking about.
scenes. Yeah,
Yeah, they did TNG and they did Voyager.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what they did. Voyager.
Yeah.
It's
What
awesome.
would be a
I
funny
love that
thing
stuff.
for them to do with DS9 though? I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
You have to use the music though.
do you like in
'cause
the
that's-
pale moonlight? Do like like we're gonna blow up Senator Vreenak and it's do it all with like TAS music and stuff? It'd be so
Well, you could do
bizarre.
the
Yep.
trials and tribulations. That would be interesting. It would be like, really,
Oh, yeah,
TA.
that would-
Oh, you could actually. That
that-
would be fun because you could
that
have
would be super fun.
have
Yeah.
pink tribbles.
and you could have
Cisco
regular
and
Kirk and
Dax.
Spock and yeah.
There
Going
we
through
go.
the pile of pink tribbles.
Anyone know how to animate? Let's make it so. I wanted to be a animator. Specifically, I wanted to work for Walt Disney Studios when I was a kid, and I almost went to animation school, but I decided to go to film school instead, and then I didn't even do that. So life just takes you.
It was a
on
trendy
strange
thing,
journeys.
like the Disney Renaissance in the late 80s, early
Yeah.
90s.
Yeah.
My Text Trek co-host Dave, he comes from an art background, and he also almost pursued animation. That was something he was flirting with. Man, I'm friends with like a lot of artists too, because I got Aaron and Starfleet Boy here. They both do art related things.
When I lived in Washington State, we had the people from this new company called Pixar come into our art class, and they're like took 2 or 3 of us aside, like, "Hey, we'd really like to have you come to San Francisco and work." And it was just like I couldn't do it because I had a heart condition, and just like I was 18, and just my brain is like, I can't move, no, Now I'm just like I could have been one of their first Pixar people, and I'm like so angry now.
You
But probably-
look at my
probably
giant house
my-
that Toy Story 3 paid for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I just think it's like save myself a lot of stress.
that animators don't get the recognition that they deserve. They're, if it's not live action, they don't necessarily get put up for awards, or they're not taken as seriously, or they're not even
Yeah.
sometimes paid like the live action showrunners and writers are, especially like
Yeah.
animated writers and things like that. I know that's a big thing in the industry. So we send
Actually,
much
it's
love to the animation folks and the animation writers. Like these stories are great. And
Well, that was one of the great things about TAS. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no,
Didn't mean to
go.
cut you off. That because there was a writer's strike, they had a lot of writers that we wouldn't normally get for animation come to write for Star Trek, and they just wrote them as Star Trek as opposed to a cartoon. In fact, one of the reasons they did a big rewrite on this episode because they kept the same beats and everything, but the guy who had written 2 Star Trek shows already basically wrote it like a little too goofy. They're like, okay, it's a cartoon, but it doesn't have to be like silly. So they kept the beats, and then I guess Gene and Dorothy rewrote the dialogue. But the oh shoot, what was I gonna say? No, I'm like off track. One of the reasons we want to do the book was to tell these stories of the people who were the animators and such. It's like without Bob Klein, our book would have like 4 pictures in it. So it's like he had kept all of his stuff, and we were able to scan it in. And Filmation was really good about making sure that their people did get paid stuff. One of the reasons they went under is they didn't want to start shipping stuff overseas, because like, this is our family, these are our people, and we cannot compete with the fact that Hanna-Barbera and everybody's dumping stuff overseas. So they had to go out of business, but they thought that was better than kind of like not letting those
outsourcing and
Yeah.
breaking up the family.
yeah
It's tough.
One of the
So-
cool things that I wrote in my notes that I liked in this episode as well was the kind of idea that, like, I always thought Enterprise did it first, but I didn't realize, like, the idea that there's like these animals that are used for medicinal
Oh yeah, the
things,
what are they
you
called?
know, like-
Gossamer mice?
yeah, and then
And the
also
halo
the
fish.
fish.
The halo
yeah,
fish.
it's like super cool that
Yeah, before,
like
before
those...
Picard had a fish.
Yeah.
Dr. McCoy and Nurse
That's
Chapel
true,
had
yeah.
one.
But this gave me, like, because like I know Phlox used that a lot, but I was like, oh, that's
Mhm.
neat that they continue to
Yeah.
do that into the 23rd century. So I like that a lot, and actually that Enterprise might have gotten their kind of like idea about it from this episode was cool.
Yeah.
I know they had a lot of fans, or there was a couple people who were fans. Like, that's why the Kzinti were going to come into season 5 if it had
Oh,
continued.
cool. And they
I
got
want to see
reference
Phlox
to Picard.
again. I want
Yeah, that would be
Phlox
really
to show up
cool.
on
Yeah.
Strange New Worlds or something. I think
And he
he'd
could
be,
live long enough to
Hmm.
do. Oh, on
Yeah,
Strange
he's a
New Worlds,
Denovian.
yeah,
He's
he
an
could totally
alien,
be,
so
yeah.
yeah,
He's like
he
he could
be
be-
old.
Yeah, he could just be old. That's true.
He could
That's
still be
very
in
cool.
Prodigy or Lord X. Oh no, he couldn't. What am I trying to say?
That's-
Not that
Well, he
old.
could be like they did in Prodigy with the holodeck thing. You
Hologram.
could have some
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah, we had
or the statue to
Scotty and
Miles
Uhura.
O'Brien on Lord X. They could have they could have little references here and there for sure. I have not seen Enterprise. That was one show that I did not watch. I watched Voyager Live, and I'm kind of doing a mini rewatch now. And like I said, I just watched TNG and DS9 in the last few years. So, but seeing how they all kind of fit together, and the animated series is like that laid some groundwork, and it should be more respected in the fandom than I think it is, because some great stories there too.
That's part of what we're here to do on these conversations, I think, is like anyone who's watching, like maybe it'll give them a second thought about the animated series. We discovered while watching the original series that there's so many things that I even, like I love Star Trek, and I tend to give it the benefit of the doubt on things, but like I had all these pop cultural understandings of the original series, and rewatching it like as an adult, like in my 40s now, was very valuable to like kind of like remind myself that, oh, there's a lot more nuance and like value than people give these shows credit for. So I'm experiencing the same thing. And speaking of that, like in this episode, I feel like the techno babble stuff was on point. Like it all flowed really well. Like, the audio performances. Did you guys notice that like the way that Spock discovers that scene between Spock and Nurse Chapel, I think it was, where he discovers what's shrinking and what isn't, like he's kind of doing his investigation.
The confusion where at first they're like, everything is getting bigger, and then it's
Yeah.
like, oh no, maybe we're just getting smaller.
Yeah.
So like under her uniform, she wears like this like metal armband, and I thought that was really interesting and kind of
Oh,
geeky.
Yeah. Maybe we'll
Well,
see it
it's with
in Strange New Worlds.
Strange New Worlds, Chapel.
Yeah,
it kinda
exactly.
does.
It
They
does,
can do that in
actually.
Strange New Worlds. She could visit some planet called Libra and have the titanium smiths make a make a titanium bracelet for her.
You're
Hey.
really good.
That would be
good
cool.
deep cut. Yes.
Yeah.
That would be really awesome.
Ooh.
I was terrible in science as a kid. Actually, Star Trek helped me pass Earth science because my teacher was a big Star Trek and X-Files fan. So he would do like these bonus questions at the end of tests, and I would literally get like 70s. It was rough. But he would have like the Star Trek calendar pictures hung up all around the room. Maybe I was
Yeah.
just distracted.
I had my 5th grade teacher was like that too back in the 90s. He was really into the Berman era Trek shows. So
Yeah,
My
mine was
genetics
into
teacher-
TOS, which was cool. But that was it was like, but that's why I don't always get the tech babble, is what I'm saying. Like it sounded good to me. I'm sorry,
My
go ahead,
genetics
Aaron.
teacher did it's like my genetics teacher did those questions too. It's like if a betazoid and a whatever, like whatever, have a child, and her empathic powers are a trait that is parental, or what it's like. Basically, it's like how much empathic powers will their child have, or something like
Oh,
that.
that's cool.
So it was kind of fun. It was like, all right, I get that, So
Nice.
it basically was equivalent of like if somebody with brown hair and red hair got married, what would their kids' hair color look like?
Mhm.
But yeah, so
That's a great
teachers
way
are
to
cool
teach
that way.
kids. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. My favorite Trekkie teacher was my graphics teacher in middle school, because he also introduced me to desktop publishing on the Mac, like using things like Springboard and stuff like that. So we would often I would often try to recreate things like the Enterprise, like do all these like
Nice.
kind of like Star Trek things, and he would be very encouraging of that. So that was my favorite thing. But I was lucky to have a few teachers. Also in middle school, a really great English teacher. Shout out to Miss Blue. She was like super into Star Trek the original series, and she
Cool.
I think she really fed a lot of interesting ideas, and we would have Trek discussions, and so that was a really cool experience as well. So if you are a student watching this, go seek out your Trekkie teachers and tell them you want to talk about Star Trek. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
We're coming up to about the hour, and we like to keep these conversations at about that long. But was there anything that, and I don't know if we got Father's full thoughts or on this episode, but I think we got him throughout this discussion for sure. But Father,
Yeah, I like it. It's a good
kinda
one.
say,
I have a lot of fun with TAS, and this is one of the fun ones. Oh, and I'm a fan of shrinking in Star Trek because I like when DS9 did it. And
yeah, that's true.
That was
one
fun.
little ship.
That was like the next time it's done the closest to this, like how small they are here, like because they were pretty small in that.
They get
episode,
even
but-
smaller
Yeah.
in that. They get so small
Yeah,
that they can't process oxygen because the oxygen molecules.
Oh,
are
that's
too big
right.
for
Wait,
them
was
in
that
DS9.
with Bashir and Miles when they were in the shuttle?
In Jadzia, yeah, they're in the
Jadzia.
runabout,
Okay, yes,
flying
now I
around with the
remember.
Defiant, fighting the Jump. We actually just covered that episode on Text Trek recently because
Oh,
we've
did
been
I miss
Oh,
that?
running
nice.
through
Okay.
season 6 and 7 of DS9.
Season 6 was my
Joel
favorite.
in the chat was
Mine
saying
too.
he wished that they had mentioned the spheroid radiation in that episode. Would have been a nice callback.
Yeah, that would have been. I'm almost surprised they didn't do that because they were such big TAS fanboys in the Deep Space Nine writers' room. They actually have several references to the animated series that went completely over my head when I watched DS9 for the first time. But if you buy Aaron and Rich's book, it points all that stuff out. So.
Nice.
That's right.
Let's
That's
take
right.
a look.
Oh, cool! Aaron's getting the book. Yeah.
Oh, I love the cover.
Yeah,
That's-
it's
That is
available.
beautiful. That's nice.
I think send me the link. The best place to get it from. I think it's Amazon is where I got it from.
Amazon
so-
probably is the best.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you can buy it at your local comic book shop or whatever, please do that because
It's
love,
much better to do that. Yeah, I agree.
yeah.
Support the,
But if
support
not,
the local
Amazon's
brick and
there.
mortar stores.
Yeah.
I gotta say, like, I'm so glad that I'm just so glad that Star Trek's stronger than ever right now. Like talking to y'all for this hour is like made me like feel very sentimental. But
There's
yeah,
so
we
much
gotta-
Star Trek that we were all over the place. I mean, that's the amazing thing that now that we can like have a tangent about the new thing and the
Yeah,
I
it's
hope there was
crazy.
enough
Yeah.
TAS. I mean, the
I
last
feel
thing I would
like, yeah,
say about
audience-
it is
audience
just
didn't
love how
complain.
in character everybody is.
Our
Like, you
audience
feel
isn't
like it's a
afraid.
continuation.
Our
Yeah.
audience is not afraid. They would tell us. They'd be like, "Get
Good.
back on track." I feel like we did a good job. But it is also just extraordinary how much influence, or like, I just love seeing how much influence the original series and the animated series still has in Star Trek, and
Yeah.
so very very cool. Final thoughts. I guess I'll just say that like this is a very fun and cute is the way I describe it episode of Star Trek. Like there's a lot of things I wrote down about like you had mentioned earlier, Michelle, about Kirk being angry, and I love to like file things. Speaking of shipping, I love to file things as evidence in my Spirk file book. So now I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, they took Spock away from him, so he's like super mad. And so that's why
He's the first one that he goes to. He's like, Spock, like you're here. Like his entire crew is there. And yes.
But yeah, the
I also-
transporter.
I mean, you can tell that they're getting more comfortable doing just the voiceovers and stuff,
Oh,
because there
yeah,
actually is more
100%.
emotion and stuff than the earlier episodes. It feels like they're okay, they're kind of getting into it now.
It feels like the
Eric's
real
finally
characters.
sounded
It feels like
distinguished.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it feels like
you
a
don't question
continuation.
it
I
when
love
it's
it.
like like so when you have like James Doohan doing like the voice of Core, which I think is in the next episode. Like sometimes like that stuff, like it's like, okay, well that's not like real Core, But then with when they get like the original voice actors, it's like, yeah, that is straight up Sulu. Like I don't question it at all. That is 100% Dr. McCoy.
Right.
That's Sarek.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's delightful that we have that like those performances from these like now very beloved actors, like and that like it's cool to see, like, one of the cool things, eventually everyone's going to know about the animated series, but one of the cool things about people still discovering it now is that means people who like the original series and the films with the original series are going to get like new performances and like new kind of information, if you will, and it's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, I've told this story before, but Michelle, you probably haven't heard this, but I did not unlike you, like I did not like have an appreciation for the animated series like early on. I did see it when they were playing the reruns on Nickelodeon, but I always kind of like rolled my eyes at it. I was very much like I guess introduced to Star Trek partly through Mike and Denise Okuda's Star Trek Encyclopedia. And like they said in there, like, Gene Roddenberry did not want the animated series to be canon. I was like, yeah, it's not canon. And I was kind of like a TAS hater for years and years, even though like I loved the original series. I loved those characters. And then there's a bunch of Star Trek podcasts I started getting into in like 2015, 2016, like around the time I started making my own content. But I kept hearing like this Aaron Harvey guy going like all these podcasts talking about like the animated series, and it's always been canon and blah blah blah. I was like, man, what the hell is this guy talking about? And then like I finally rewatched everything. I was like, man, there's a lot of stuff to love in this show, and it is like season 4 of the original series. And so I felt like, oh wow, there's like this whole other Star Trek show that I've ignored all my life, and now I can appreciate, and it's actually become one of my favorite Star Trek shows.
That's awesome. It's you definitely feel the difference. But for me, like you can make fun of it a little bit. Like as a teenager, did I appreciate it like I would appreciate it now? Definitely not. But we watched it because the plots were good.
Mhm.
It there were little things that you could be like
Yeah,
Kirk laughing like ha 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 when he turns his hand around, like we would make fun, like that's still a running joke between me and my friends to this day.
Like it's like hand has been like moved out. Like it seems like his
Yeah,
hand
it's
is
like-
disconnected from his body. It's very weird.
Yeah, it's which again, it's not a shot at the it's like lovingly just saying.
Well, the
this
speed
is
that they
awesome,
had to
this is
put these
fun.
things together, it's surprised it looks as good as it does. Honestly, Some of
Yeah.
it's just like with no computers and just everything
I was
by
shocked
hand.
the other day, Aaron. You told me, I asked you like, when did they first start like pre-production on the animated series? And you're like, oh, that was like April of '73. I was like, the first episode came out September 8th. So like from April to September, like they created a show. Like that's that's very impressive.
And the scripts, like creating these ideas, and so I'm really excited to rediscover it. I've watched like maybe one or two of my favorites. Like I love the one with Spock where he's a Flash yesteryear.
Yeah.
Fabulous episode. And that's the thing. I always wanted more TOS content when they were younger. So when I was a kid, I would buy the comics. I would, look for those stories. You want that TOS season 4, and I think the animated series, you can make an argument for it, definitely. And just fun.
That's pretty much what CBS says now. There was a quote from, I think it was Alex Kurtzman, just like like. TOS is considered the first 3 years of the 4-year mission. The fourth season, the fourth year is TAS, and then it went on. But it was like, okay, they're literally saying that now, so that's nice to hear that.
It's nice that it's on Paramount Plus, because it was when I was a kid, you had to drop, like my parents dropped a considerable amount of money on the box sets. That was VHS. And I think about
they had
that
Laserdisc
now
too, which was interesting.
Oh
yeah, we never had a Laserdisc growing up.
No,
But
neither did I.
when
But
they-
it was just like the fact that it was on that. was like,
but it was
wow.
hard to get the content. Like it wasn't just on somewhere in syndication like the original series was. So to discover that kind of as I was going into high school was really cool, and just kind of appreciating like the movies and the original series, but also this added content that was new now, like new Kirk, Spock, and Bones, and Uhura, and everybody,
Right,
Sulu,
yeah.
like
Absolutely.
Scotty. Sadly not Chekhov, but He
Yeah.
wrote an episode, right?
He wrote an episode, and
Right.
Yeah.
and actually, Father, you got to ask him about it at Mission Chicago.
Yeah,
Nice.
This is pretty
I
cool.
told him.
I'm sure he
they
said
brought
just
back your-
good things.
Oh boy.
Well, I told him like, did you know that they brought back the giant Spock in one of the new shows in Lower Decks, and he didn't know that, and he was like, he was like, oh my god, that's
Oh.
amazing. Like he was
He was
surprised.
dead.
Yeah.
I told him like, yeah, but he's like dead. I kind of thought that would like kind of piss him off, but like he didn't.
Yeah.
He just seemed like surprised and happy. He's like, oh, that's cool. I'm glad like someone actually like remembered that episode and cared about it.
Yeah.
And then he
Yeah.
complained about Gene Roddenberry, being a stickler for like all the rewrites that they had to go through on that. And
Yeah, he
He
said it
didn't have
almost
fun
put him
writing
off
that.
of writing forever. Yeah, exactly. It's like it was my first TV writing and almost my last.
Well, very cool. So I'm gonna give this episode a 9. Actually, I liked it that much. I thought it was very good. So, and especially because of this discussion, I don't know. It's definitely hangover the next generation here at Starfleet Boy. I was moving slow today, so you guys have perked me up. I'm ready to go. I'm gonna have another cup of coffee and get to work.
oh yeah, you were up late last night. I remember.
I was
now.
up late last night with you, Father, actually. So that was fun. It was,
I was
nice.
actually up
Thank
pretty
you.
late last night too. I just realized that.
Yes, I was as well with my co-host with Crusher Combo because we were recording that
Well,
thing. So
We're all night
Star-
owls.
Starfleet Boys, despite the name, not a boy anymore, and can't handle the liquor as
Not
much. And
so boyish anymore. That's what
Yeah, not
Garrick
so-
told.
although I did
Bashir.
shave, and now people
Oh,
think
yeah.
I'm younger, so that's cool. And
I shaved this morning, but my beard grew back.
it's like when they had to, get back to themselves on the TAS episode. He went through the transporter. It just,
Yeah,
came
just
back. It's like the
restored
Riker
my
beard. You
molecular
can't,
state, yeah.
Michelle, you were saying you were enjoying rediscovering the animated series. I'm super happy you did this impromptu thing and hopped on this opportunity.
Oh,
I
thank
hope
you
you'll
for
consider-
mentioning it and inviting me. Please.
I hope you'll come to more. So I hope you'll watch. We try to do them pretty consistently. I've been a little
Cool.
inconsistent. Starfleet Boys had a variety of crazy events, but we try to do them every Saturday at 3 p.m. So I'll put you on the roster of people I let know what's going on. I'll let you. I'll keep you in the loop. In other words,
I appreciate that. If I can come on again, I would love to. If I can wrangle my co-host Jesse to watch an episode, we'll definitely maybe we'll come on.
What
That would
part
be
of the world
awesome.
are y'all in? If you want to tell us.
What's that?
What part of the world are you in?
do you hail
Where
from?
Oh,
you
I'm in New York, so East Coast.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's 4:00 here.
I didn't want to say, but I recognize your northeastern kind of cadence
yeah, I
of
know.
speaking.
It's rough, man. I live
It's nice.
mid-country
It's
for a
nice.
while. Like, say water. Say butter. I'm like, dude. Like, all right, I get it. I have an accent. I know. I'm from
I
Long
find
Island.
it pleasing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Very
It's-
cool.
it's a whole thing.
Well, tell us your kind of final thoughts if you have any, and also if we have a tradition of giving ratings, but they don't have to mean anything. I give like pretty much everything a 10, as everyone points out. No one remembers when I give lower than a 10, even though I do. But but you're welcome to give a rating or an absurd rating, or not give a rating at all. But some final thoughts, and then tell folks, just remind folks where they can find you and follow you, and anything else you want to promote. That's you, Michelle.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
I was like, wait, am I supposed to talk? I don't know.
The only time I'm ever silent is when I'm not supposed to be. It's great.
Oh, come on.
I thought that this episode was a lot of fun. I would give it like an 8 because it not a lot of character development. I tend to enjoy shows that have either some deep philosophical argument or like really great character development. So I reserve my 9s and 10s for that. But I thought this was a very enjoyable watch. I love all the characters and how they work together to solve the problem. And it was kind of comical, but not too campy, so I would definitely give it an 8. And in terms of where you can find me, I'm on Twitter at OnTheRock81, and you can find me on Crusher Convo. That's at Crusher Convo, with my co-host Jessie, who's at Jester Nene. You can find her on Twitter. She kind of runs that ship. I kind of I hang on to the nacelles and just hope for the best. But she is amazing, and her passion for Beverly Crusher has really driven us to have a little like Bev Heads community, which is great. And so we're gonna be doing some Picard season 3 reviews like live, maybe
On
something like
Spaces,
that.
right?
Yeah, I think we're debating on how we're gonna do it. We want probably to do Twitter Spaces, but maybe we'll do something like this. We're
Oh,
kind of.
cool.
I don't want to speak for Jessie because she's the one that has that all. She handles all the technical things. I'm just glad I could get on. So, but it's so we're coming out. We have 2 episodes released. I believe our next episode is dropping. When did Borg drop? I think our next episode dropping tomorrow. I think. This is horrible. I don't know my own podcast schedule, but
That happens.
It's really sad. We're new at this. We're incredibly new and not like, we're just, and we have guests. Like, we would love to have any of you guys on.
Oh, cool.
So we have like a guest list, and we would love to. We come out twice a month. So,
Cool.
iBorg came out January 15th. That was with Jay. We actually opened Pike Night. Shout out to them. They're a big reason that we're podcasting. They cyber suggested this to us, and they're awesome. Love Green Shirt as well. And Where's Beverly? There's so many podcasts. Obviously, you guys, Text Track, Starfleet Boy. Aaron, it's very nice to meet you. I have to check out
Same.
that book. So yeah, tomorrow, I think our next episode is coming out. So do check that out. I believe we're covering Disaster. I think that's
Ooh.
That's
we
a good
cover we look at
That's
TNG
fun.
episodes, and we do a Twitter poll, and then we give them like 4 choices, and the fans choose what episode to cover, and we do it from the perspective and through the lens of Dr. Beverly Crusher.
Yeah.
Because we just want to appreciate her character a little more. So Starfleet Boy, please send all of our Bevhead love to the premiere. And thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much. It's very cool. Aaron, what about yourself?
I want for the pun to give it a Terra 10, but I was probably more of an 8 as well.
The one
Yeah,
time I could have given a funny 10,
I
I
know.
missed the opportunity. That's awesome.
So yeah. So, no, it is like what Michelle was saying. It's like it's great, but there's also it needed a little bit more to be a 10, I think.
Very cool. And where can you have some podcasts that you have a lot of podcasts that you're on as well,
Well,
including this one.
Well, Ben, like I was a guest on Enterprise Incidents a couple weeks ago. They're doing animated series now. I need to go listen to some of those. And then I'm hoping to bring back my own podcast, Drawn to Trek, which is about animated Trek.
Such a good name.
Nice.
And Infinite Trek is our other podcast that we had earlier, which is sort of the anything you want to talk about in Trek. It's sort of like the potluck catch-all podcast that can be on or off. So there's no real schedule for that one. But hopefully, last year was a kind of a big personal, like a lot of stuff happened in my life, so had to kind of stop podcasting for a while. But hoping to go back now. So. And you can find me at Geek Filter on Twitter and Instagram. And in March, I have a cover for Strange New Worlds, The Illyrian Enigma, coming out, number 4.
Nice.
Cover B. I moved up from variant artist to like B.
Woohoo!
So
Awesome.
Yeah.
Pick that up.
Very, very cool.
that's where I'm at.
Fathery, what's going on Text Trek tomorrow that we're all insanely excited for?
I'm worried people are like overexcited. I'm kind of like, I don't even want to talk about Star Trek Picard right now because it's just too much. It's getting overwhelming. But yes,
I think it's pretty safe.
It's gonna be the best series ever.
I know. Yeah, it's,
Just like everybody's saying
worried.
that. It's just I'm cautiously
Yeah.
optimistic. That's what I keep
Yeah.
saying.
I'll
Cautiously
just-
optimistic.
that's
I'll
the
be-
right way to go into it. That's the right way to
I'll
go
be
into it.
chaotically uncautious for all of you then.
Thank you.
It's fine.
Yes.
One more person says that Sayla is not going to be in there. I'm like, sure she is, because it's like a John Harrison sort of thing. It's like, stop saying she's not there. Because clearly she will be.
Maybe she'll be in the trailer tomorrow.
I don't know. I just
Probably not.
Lose our
Who knows?
minds again. I've never seen
It's
so
just
much
weird
hype
how
for a
often they keep
trailer.
saying-
So
Yeah,
much hype
it's-
for a trailer.
There was a trailer for a trailer.
It's
That
it's a
was
little
new.
insane.
I'm
I mean,
now-
it's
I'm now
cool.
convinced that there will be some degree of a backlash when some people are like, "Oh my god, this is supposed to be the best TV show ever made," and now I want to kill myself because it doesn't live up to my expectations. I don't
do that.
know how many people are gonna I'm already braced for like, okay, that's coming. Like
Like if
there's
Picard and
gonna
Beverly
be out
don't
there.
kiss, I'm out. That's it.
Oh
No,
my
I'm kidding.
God.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Everyone has like
Kidding.
something that like they're gonna.
There's
little
so
bit
many
of-
expect. I really feel
Yeah.
for the show makers because there's so many expectations on this season. It's crazy,
Insane.
but
Yeah.
they seem to be handling it pretty well. So it's
If somebody
It's
dies,
good.
people are going to be upset.
Yes.
It's gonna be, yeah.
People riot over anything. So it's just like
Yes.
like
Yeah.
Bev heads, we've been disappointed for 35 years, so we're just used to it. Like get used to disappointment.
Just
like
listen
Princess
to what-
Bride.
This is like being a
what
TAS
Gates
fan for all the
McFadden's
years.
saying.
Yeah, right?
I'm just listening to what Gates McFadden's saying, and she's super hype about it. So
Oh, Beverly, I think
I'm
is going to be
optimistic.
wonderful.
I'd say.
But Crusher's a separate issue. That not everybody likes that ship anyway, so I'm not,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't.
it's-
I actually like. I think it'd be cool if Picard and Beverly aren't
don't get together. Fathery, we definitely need to have you on Crusher Convo then. I would love that. We're open to
Regardless,
all...
she should have like been
all
mentioned
Beverly
at this point because she was such a big
Yes.
part of everybody's life.
This is why we can't talk about this. I could go on.
We're already 10 minutes over. We're already 10
All right, sorry, okay,
minutes
okay.
over.
Oh.
But
Fathery,
for
I'm
more
sorry.
of
Go,
this-
go, go.
But for more of this juicy type of content, you know where to go. And that's Crusher Convo.
Look out.
So like, yeah, we should get Father there, and I should go on there and ruffle some
You guys
feathers,
should all
too.
come on. All three of you. Let's do it.
Yeah. No, I'd
It'll be
love to do
awesome.
that. I'd love to do that at some point. I'm
But
waiting,
carry
I'm,
on,
waiting on,
Father.
I'm waiting on Starfleet Boy to ask me my rating and final thoughts on this episode.
I
But
was.
guess
and you, and
we don't
I
have-
was, and you.
We went on a tangent. My
When?
apologies.
Yeah, I was. I said, "What's so?"
So
I
you
kinda
asked me
introduced
what's
you.
happening on Text Track.
Yeah, that's true. I
tomorrow
kind of
that we're all
introduced
happy
that way.
about.
Yeah, I am curious about your ratings and your final thoughts for
Oh,
sure.
Well, we're 11 minutes over, so we don't have time for it. But it's gonna be a really funny number.
You're s-
I'll
It's my
give it
fault.
I'll give it a Starbase 23 out of 1/16 of an inch. Well, yeah,
Very nice,
no, I
very
like it.
nice.
It's fun. It could have used like something like a little bit more interesting, like the Terratins or something. Like I don't know, like they're like little. There's just not time to like do something like interesting or exciting with it. It's just like, you always see like that same shot of them. It's just their leader and then everyone standing in the background. But
Yeah.
yeah, maybe if they could have like made them like a little bit more interesting or something. But anyways, I still liked it. And yes, Text Trek tomorrow, 8 p.m. Central. We're doing a reaction and breakdown to the Star Trek Picard Season 3 final trailer that will drop during the AFC Conference final game. That
Why do I
starts
have
at,
a life? I need to not have a life so I can participate in these things.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You're welcome to join us.
I
You
know.
have
I
an
wish
open
I could.
invitation.
I have obligations.
But we also
How dare
but
you?
I know it's awful.
Picard season 3 is not
Okay.
here yet, though. We have other Star Trek to talk about in the meantime. In the following couple of weeks, we're currently working our way through Deep Space Nine season 7 on Text Trek. I'm watching the show for the 47th time. It's my favorite Star Trek ever. My co-host Dave is watching it for the first time, so he has a
It's really fun. to
fresh
hear your
experience. Yeah, seeing all the
conversations.
stuff for the first time in 2023. We just covered the first 8 episodes of DS9 Season 7. We're going to do the next 8 episodes on our live show Friday at 7 p.m. Central on YouTube. And you can also listen to our show wherever you get your podcasts.
That's right.
And then we'll be doing weekly coverage of Picard and then Strange New Worlds. I'm dying for Strange New Worlds to get back. I had a lot of fun with Season 1.
Yeah.
Very excited for Season 2. And then, of course, Discovery and our
Lower
lovely
Decks
animated-
crossover.
Oh yeah, we have the Lower Decks crossover to look forward to. So and then another season of Lower Decks later in the year too. So tons of cool stuff on the horizon.
Very,
Really
very
check that
cool. Starfleet Boy can be found here on YouTube Saturdays at 3 p.m. Definitely, we talk about like I guess we can call it like completed Trek or legacy Trek because the Saturday show. That's what we do on Saturdays. So next up, after the animated series, is going to be Star Trek Deep Space Nine. I'm very excited about that, but I'm also kind of sad that there's not that much of the animated series left. I wish there was more because it's really good. Then when Picard airs, we're gonna do live reaction. Not
We're
like
halfway
live
done.
streams.
Sorry.
What's that?
We're
Yeah, we're
halfway
halfway
through
done.
the animated series. That's kind of
that's
sad.
true. I know. I got sad when we were at that point on TOS too. It's funny how the time flies. It's crazy. TNG, my discussions took like 7 years to do, and these have gone.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
I'm not even joking. It's like more like 4 years, but still, it was a long time to get those discussions done. But
You started right when the show ended. No, I'm just kidding.
it's 19 years. But yeah, we'll be doing those on Thursday. Stay tuned for the time, gathering the kind of regulars who want to come on and talk about Picard season 3. So actually, the invitation is open to you all. But I feel like Father and I will be talking about it together on Sunday. So we try to limit our interactions. So you'll be seeing Father probably not on those streams, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
Right, Father?
I'll listen.
Yeah, yeah.
I might pop in and say hi.
But I
or
hope
something.
you'll invite me to Text Trek because I don't mind talking about it again. So you don't have to do it every week if you don't want to, because we do spend a lot of time together streaming, so it's fine. But yeah, so that'll be
Podcast
it's gonna be
buddies.
fun.
It's
It's gonna be
great.
fun covering the Picard weekly.
the Picard. Yeah,
Wow.
it's true.
We'll have like content like Thursday,
I was just
Friday,
saying that.
Saturday, and Sunday. So
Covering live Trek is going to be amazing for somebody who's grown up with it and wanted to talk about it, but didn't have a lot of Trek friends to do
Yeah.
that, or they were like nerd, you know,
That-
not good
that's
in
the
math
same-
and science at all, but nerd, you know,
that's
which
the
is not
same
a
way
bad
I
thing.
grew up.
I
Yeah, like,
embrace it.
none
No.
of my friends watched Star Trek. None of my immediate family. It was always something that I only could enjoy by myself until 2009. It started to get cool again. So
I do dig the Kelvin timeline. I know it's a contentious thing.
it got all my friends watching Star Trek. So I'll
Yeah,
always be
I
thankful
agree. I
for
like
that.
it too. Yeah, it's true. And I like it actually. I'm one of those guys that like.
I really
enjoy
like
the,
Beyond.
Yeah,
Beyond's
Beyond was
my-
really good.
Yeah.
I think it's neck and neck with 2009. But anyways, that's what's up on the horizon for Starfleet Boy. I was very fortunate. I have a lifelong dream coming true soon, which is to get to go to the premiere of Star Trek Picard. So I'm super honored. Thank you to the folks that made that happen for me, and you know who you are. A shout out to you. But I don't know what kind of coverage they'll let us do, and I kind of want to experience the thing, like just. You know, it's my first
Yeah.
premiere of any kind, so I'll report as much as I think I can about it. But I think Paramount's gonna do some kind of coverage for. Yeah, I'm going to Hollywood. It's time to go to Hollywood.
Let's go to Hollywood, as they say on the Muppet movie, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it's true.
you're gonna take the Studebaker, you know, moving right
I'll get
along.
to meet you in person first. Finally.
Yeah, I'm so excited, Aaron. This is gonna be very cool. And by the way, if you want anything from Miami, like we have really good key lime pie. I don't mind. I'm super happy to bring you some goodies from here. I don't know what else is in season right now. I don't think
You
mangoes.
have
are
good
around,
Cuban
but-
food. The best Cuban
We
food
do,
in the
we do,
country
it's
is
true.
in Miami.
That
I
I
think
might
fruit
eat
is
on
probably
the
something you
airplane.
can't bring
Yeah.
over on the airplane anyway.
Oh, that's right. California
it-
is pretty strict for good reason on what you can,
Yeah.
what kind of fruits you can bring over.
Yeah.
So good point. I don't want to have any of my efforts delayed to get there. So that's a good
Yeah,
point.
that would be bad. Why did you miss the Picard premiere? Because I
as
brought
key
an
lime.
orange on an airplane. Yeah, exactly.
But that reminds me, that same week on February 7th, our good friend, the sub commander who occasionally, well, actually often decloaks to come on the show, is going to be doing his first Twitter space. So go check that out that week. And then, yeah, just stay tuned. I'm so excited. I'll report whatever I'm able to. It'll be really fun. So, and thank you so much. All right. If that's it, order of business closed. We're gonna send in the the latest log to Starfleet Command. Live long and prosper, and we will see you guys next time. Thank you.